President, please be seated. The court is now in session. Ms. Chakraborty, could you report the attendance of the parties and the individuals to the proceeding today? Ms. Chakraborty, Mr. President, all parties to the proceeding are present except the accused Ieng Sari, who is present in the holding cell downstairs. He requests to waive his direct presence through his counsel to participate in today's proceeding for the whole day. A letter of waiver has been submitted to the greffier. President, thank you. The Chamber has received the request by the accused Ieng Sari dated 31st July 2012 through his counsel to waive his direct presence in the proceeding today and instead to follow it through a remote means for the whole day. One match, the treating doctor of the accused at the detention facility examines him and finds that he has some heart problem and fatigue and has a backache that he cannot sit for long, and recommends that the accused shall be authorized to follow the proceeding in the holding cell downstairs through audio-visual means. As Mr. Ieng Sari has some health problem and he cannot participate directly in the proceeding, but instead can follow it through the holding cell downstairs, and that he can communicate directly with his defense team, the Chamber agrees to the request to waive his direct presence in today's proceeding, and that he is authorized to follow it through the audio-visual means from the holding cell downstairs for the whole day. The AV unit is instructed to link the proceeding to the holding cell downstairs for him to follow. Before I hand the floor to the defense teams, Judge of the bench, do you have any question to be put to this witness? Judge Lavange, you may proceed.
Indeed, thank you, Mr. President. Good morning to all parties. Good morning, witness. I have a few follow-up questions to put to you in order to clarify some of the explanations that you have made before this chamber. First and foremost, let us return to the period during which you were part of the Maquis that preceded the fall of Phnom Penh. You were very close to Pol Pot as well as to other leaders. Now, if I understood what you explained to this chamber, it would appear that you met Mr. Khieu Samphan for the first time in 1971. Is this accurate, or do you have any further specifications or clarifications to provide?
Answer, that is correct.
Do you recall the circumstances in which you were led to meet Mr. Khieu Samphan?
him. After he arrived from his residence, he entered the kitchen hall, the military kitchen hall, and I met him there. And he asked how I was, and I said I was fine. And we just exchanged the greeting.
Alors,
Now, aside from those formalities, were you aware or did you discuss with any one of the uncles the role being played by Mr. Khieu Sampong? Was there any discussion about his participation in the GRUNC, the royal government of Cambodia?
Answer: No, I did not know the details about that matter. I learned of his role through listening to the radio broadcast.
est-ce que vous...
Did you know or did you hear about Mr. Khieu Sampong's involvement in the armed forces for the liberation of the people of Kampuchea? Were you aware of the role that he played?
Answer: I learned of his clear role after I met him, and later on I met him at his house, or sometimes while he was working with Pol Pot and Nuon Chea. And sometimes I observe him at his residence, sitting down and writing the documents. However, I did not know the details of his exact role. At that time, we were in the jungle, and I learned of his role through the radio broadcast, as I said earlier.
Et
As far as the army is concerned, the RAK, or the Revolutionary Army of Kampuchea, who was the head of the army? Who was the commander who had overall responsibility?
Response: From what I observed, at that time, Ieng Sary came to work in office K7, which was mainly the farming part. At that time, he did not speak of the soldiers, but he talked about the mobile forces. he was at that time it was Bong Kam who was in charge of the mobile unit. That's how I initially learned about that mobile unit. That was back in Ratnagiri. And it was in late 1968.
Alors,
let's move forward in time a little bit. I'm not so concerned with what happened in 1968. I'm rather interested in knowing what happened after King Norodom fell from power. Was there any centralized power? Was there anyone who was in charge of the armed forces, or were those armed forces being led by individual zone leaders? What exactly was the state of affairs?
Response. After the coup d'etat, at that time I was in Office 1 and I engaged in rice farming. At that time, they referred to the mobile force, not the military or soldiers. They were sent in a group of 150 for 2 times to rest and to assist in rice farming. The road from Bokao to Undomir was interrupted by the enemy activities, and another road from Bokao to Oyadao, or which was known as Road 19, was also intercepted by the enemy from time to time. So the mobile forces were in charge of the security for these 2 roads. That is for the Undomir road and for Road 19. I myself did not know who was their commander. There was no such introduction. I only saw these groups of mobile forces who assisted in rice farming at the time.
alors,
Let's try and make some inroads here. Did the situation improve following the departure of a certain number of Vietnamese troops after 1973? Were the roles of zone leaders enhanced or changed, or how did the role of the leaders change following the departure of those Vietnamese troops?
Response. In 1973, the main office was as 71. I did not observe any changes in the leadership role back then. But I could not say about the zone level.
vous avez fait
Mr. Pipon, you talked about several meetings between the uncles, that is to say Nun Chia, Ying Sari, Pol Pot, Khieu Samphan, and others. At the time, were you a first-hand witness of those meetings, or did you simply hear about those meetings taking place? Did you hear about these meetings as they were being reported by other people?
Response. In 1973, in some areas, I was the first-hand witness. That is, I myself was there. And I was not told about other meetings where I was not present.
alors
And concerning those meetings for which you were a direct witness, did you ever observe any disagreements that would have arisen amongst the uncles, that is to say Pol Pot, Khieu Samphan, Nun Chia, or between Nun Chia and Ying Sari? Do you have a recollection of any matters or problems that were discussed and that led to disagreements, or was there always perfect harmonious consensus?
Response. Since I had known him, and throughout the period, I did not observe any disagreement. They were in harmonious agreement. It was peaceful amongst themselves. And as I stated earlier, in 1972, I took a journey with Ông Nun Chia to Samlot. It was quite a long journey. And prior to that, in 1971, as I earlier indicated, there was a mass meeting throughout the country. And then there was a congress in Trapeang Prey, as I stated earlier. Of course, I did not stay permanently wherever the meeting took place. I was only present in the certain locations where I witnessed those meetings. And I only spoke of the meetings where I personally participated, and I had no knowledge of other meetings. For example, if at Office K5 I was a guard, I did not participate in any other meetings, I so stated. So I state whatever I know. And of course, I could not be in a position to know every detail of every meeting amongst themselves.
Are you aware of how communications were exchanged between the forces within Cambodia and the figureheads who were located outside of Cambodia? For example, do you know of how communications were sent to contact Mr. Ying Sari, who was in China, or the means of communication to establish contact with those located within the country.
Response. In regards to such communication, it existed. For example, the communication took place through a form of a telegram exchange. And these continued after 1973 between themselves and between the zone level. And of course, through such a communication, it facilitated the journey from one place to another.
Therefore, those communications were achieved primarily through the use of telegrams. Is this accurate?
Response, yes, through telegram.
And I would presume that in preparation of Prince Norodom's trip in 1973, there must have been many telegrams that were sent. Were you yourself associated or involved in the preparation of that particular trip?
I did go to greet Samdech Sihanouk when he came to visit the liberated zone in 1973. At that time, many people came from throughout Ratanakiri province, including Timpang district, to greet him. And many people accompanied him throughout his visit, even to Siem Reap and upon his departure. I actually provided an act as a personal protection for him, that is for Samdech Sihanouk.
Est-ce que vous avez entendu parler?
Did you ever hear about the occurrence of a special national congress that would have been held on the 24th and 25th of February in 1975 under the auspices of Mr. Khieu Samphan? Did you ever hear about a large meeting that was held in February 1975, and that was presided over by Mr. Khieu Samphan in his capacity as Vice Prime Minister of the Grunk?
I heard about that through radio broadcast, but I did not know the place where they convened that meeting.
Et lorsque vous en avez...
And when you did hear about that meeting, did you also hear about a list of 7 super traitors?
No, I did not pay my attention to the so-called 7 traitors.
Après la chute de Phnom
After the fall of Phnom Penh, were any proclamations made by the leaders and that were broadcast over the radio airwaves? This is following the fall of Phnom Penh.
was broadcast on the radio that all the spearheads at 9:30 a.m. on that day had liberated the city, and that they would meet in the center of the city.
Et ce message
Who was intended to be the recipient of those radio messages, and who authored those messages?
The announcement was made to the entire nation, and probably also listened by the international side. At that time, I also had my own radio, and actually Kyo Sampon, who was the commander of the military troops of the Grund, made that announcement.
Est-ce que vous
Did you hear about his special national congress summoning representatives of the people of Kampuchea and the three categories of the people's army, and as well as the monks and the Funk? This meeting reportedly occurred on the 24th, 25th, and 27th of April 1975 and presided over by Mr. Kyo Sampon.
I heard of that announcement on the radio, that is his announcement, yes.
And what do you remember of this broadcast?
si vous n'avez pas
If you don't remember anything, just tell us. That's fine as well, of course.
Response: I don't remember this.
Well, for the purposes of the record, I would like to let the chamber know that this was the Special National Congress of Cambodia that took place on 24 and 25 February 1975, presided over by Mr. Kyo Sampon, and the document is D108/43/3. Now, regarding the statements that were made on the radio after the fall of Phnom Penh, you can refer to document D359/1/1.37 and E3/18. Now I would like to turn to the actual experience of the evacuation. You told us during your previous statements that this is a topic that was brought up often in many meetings. And in particular, you spoke about the major meeting that was held in June 1974, and that apparently was a meeting that was organized by the Central Committee of the CPK. This is a meeting in which you mentioned which you said Mr. Yang Sari attended. Do you confirm that during this major meeting that took place in June 1974, corrects the interpreter. The evacuation was brought up, the evacuation of the cities as well as the evacuations of the liberated zones. And when I speak about the cities, I'm referring to Udong, Skung, Stung Treng, Krache, and other cities. So, do you confirm this, or do you have any specifications to make?
Response. I do not have more to add on this. I already stated my position.
When you say that the experience of this evacuation was discussed, I imagine that this has positive connotations. That is to say that these evacuations had a positive effect, at least in military terms, and maybe also in terms of the revolution. Can you maybe provide us with some clarification on the possible positive effects of this evacuation?
Response. I already indicated I only understand the term evacuation. I learned about this only on one occasion at B5, and I have no idea of others detailed aspect concerning this.
And during your statement last Thursday, you also spoke about study sessions or training sessions that apparently were chaired by Pol Pot, Nun Chea, or Khieu Samphan. And in the record, or at least in the draft transcript of last Thursday's hearing, we can find this at 11:04. And you said the following: I learned this during his presentation. Pol Pot, Nun Chea, and Khieu Samphan presented this idea to us. It was the experience that they had learned, and we had to learn from these positive experiences in order to liberate Phnom Penh in the end. That's how I learned about this evacuation. So, can you confirm first that these three figures, separately or together, presented to you indeed the experience, so to say, the positive experience, so to say, of evacuation?
Response. I already confirmed in my testimonies that these three people remained permanently at the office before the liberation of Phnom Penh. And after the liberation, the three of them remained together permanently as well. And I do not think I have anything else to add. I'm afraid my statement will be repetitive.
So, can you please provide us with some clarification? As far as I understand, the training sessions, the study sessions that you spoke about, did they take place before the capture of Phnom Penh or after the capture of Phnom Penh? or before and afterwards?
Response. Before the liberation of Phnom Penh, it was at early April, and also after the liberation of Phnom Penh, there was on another occasion when the meeting was convened. I think I already told the chamber all about this, and I have nothing else to add. I have nothing else other than what I saw to tell the court.
So, witness, you did speak indeed about a major meeting, or in any case, an important meeting that took place at B5 at the beginning of April 1975. And the training sessions that you spoke about, were they different meetings from the meeting that took place in April 1975? And did these training sessions take place before or after that meeting in April 1975?
Response. I'm afraid I do not understand Your Honor's question because it's rather confusing.
Witness, you described in length how the meeting that took place at the beginning of April 1975, and you also spoke about study sessions, training sessions. So, were these two different events, or was it the same thing? Did these study sessions take place before the meeting of April 1975, or did these study sessions take place after this meeting in April 1975?
Response. The whole moment to liberate the country. I think that was the meeting that was convened for the nation and for the country. I don't know what else I haven't made clear to the chamber because I have already told the truth. The President witness, you are now instructed to compose yourself because you are now advised to tell the chamber the truth, and indeed if you don't know, you just say you don't know. And we note that you appear to be behaving improperly in making the statement. So you already been advised from the very beginning that you should only respond to the chamber on what you witnessed, what you saw, and if you don't know, you're supposed to say you don't know. And you said a lot about the meetings that you attended and some other meetings that you have never attended but you heard of. Judge Lavange, you may now proceed, but we feel that when the question is rendered through the Khmer rendition, it would not be easy, so you may simplify the question so that it is short and precise, so that the witness may be able to address it precisely as well.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I will try to simplify things. to put things in simpler terms, witness, before the capture of Phnom Penh, did you witness several meetings during which Pol Pot or Nunchia or Kyo Sampan presented to you or presented the experience of the evacuation?
Response. I may not wish to respond to this question because I do not want to contradict myself in this.
I'm not trying to have you contradict yourself. I'm simply trying to obtain clarification. Because we did speak at length about the meeting that was held at the beginning of April 1975. But you also spoke about other meetings. So why are you afraid of contradicting yourself? What is the issue here? I'm trying to simply understand which meeting you are referring to.
Response. I already stated that the meeting was held in B5 on early April concerning the evacuation of the population. That's what I know. And I already said that I could not go further than this. There would be other meetings, but the meetings were held in the form of study sessions. And during such sessions, presentation on the global and the national situations and aspects were presented, and also how to build the party and where the revolutionary live view was also presented. When people were told to improve the performance. So I feel that the question was rather repetitive, and I feel that my statement will somehow be repetitive, and I don't know what else I should say on this.
So now let's turn to this major meeting at the beginning of April 1975. If I understood correctly how it took place, this meeting involved the major leaders of the CPK, but also zone leaders or even division leaders. Can you confirm this?
Response. Yes, I already did so during my previous testimony session, and for that I do not wish to repeat because questions were put to me to confirm this, and I already confirmed. Since I already stated the detail already, I should not do that again today.
sometimes it's necessary to provide clarification because the transcripts exist in 3 different languages, and sometimes there are differences between the different versions. You told us that the meeting started with the presentation of the so-called experience of the evacuation of the cities. And then you said that during this meeting, maps were shown, or at least one map that was displayed, and you also said that there was a blackboard on which drawings were made and which notes were taken. Can you confirm that that is what happened, that there was first a presentation on the evacuation, which was followed by discussions based on maps and on the notes that were written on the blackboard?
Response: yes, it is correct.
La carte.
And was the map a map of Cambodia, or was it a map of Phnom Penh? Or was the city of Phnom Penh drawn on the blackboard?
Response: it was not a map. It was a blackboard with some kind of drawing. For example, the drawing showing the particular spearheads. They used the board for drawing as a visual aid for people who attended the session to understand the presentation. So the board was used to draw these sketches.
Were any military instructions given to the attendants in order to know which divisions, which frontline forces were to penetrate Phnom Penh, in which places, and in order to take control of specific areas? Were strategic objectives assigned to the different military forces?
Response: in principle, that was the case. Certain targets would be identified. The targets for each zone and each division before they reached their main target to liberate Phnom Penh completely.
Do you remember where the different divisions were placed, and which divisions took place in the capture of Phnom Penh, and which zones were assigned to which divisions?
Response: I don't remember the details because it was over 30 years already, and it would be easier to talk about the zones because when Phnom Penh was attacked, forces from all zones engaged in the attack.
I imagine that the assignment of the areas to capture Phnom Penh depended on the divisions that were. You said that Koitun's forces were in charge of taking over specific roads, but were other divisions in charge of other areas of? Do you remember that, or do you not remember any of these military details?
Response: I forget a lot about this.
And during this meeting, or during other meetings, was the risk of bombing brought up, the risk that Phnom Penh would be bombed?
Response: This matter was raised also because it was said that at some areas planes were used. Airplanes were used in Siem Reap and Sihanouk locations.
So, if the bombing of Siem Reap and Sihanoukville was brought up, were any risks of seeing Phnom Penh being bombed also discussed when Phnom Penh was about to be captured? If you don't remember, just say so. I'm not trying, of course, to put you in a difficult spot.
Response: I don't remember.
Did you hear people giving any directions, such as disseminating messages within to the people and using loudspeakers to do so? Were these kind of practical details discussed during the meeting or during other meetings?
Response: No, I'm not aware of this.
Did you ever hear any directions in regard to which explanations were to be given to the people who had to be evacuated? Were the people told, for example, or were you told that you had to tell the people who were evacuated that they could come back after a short while? Was this kind of direction given?
Response: I don't know.
apologies. My apologies, Mr. President, Your Honors. I heard some mumbling in Khmer. It wasn't translated. So the gentleman, after he answered, he made some further comments that was not translated. Perhaps we could get that translated. Thank you.
Monsieur le témoin, est-ce que
Witness, can you please repeat the answer that you gave to the previous question?
Response. I just said that I didn't know. That's all. I didn't know the details.
Witness, did you hear people giving directions on how much time would be given to the population to leave their homes and to exit Phnom Penh? Was it immediate? Did people have to leave immediately? Or were the people given a certain amount of hours or maybe more time to leave?
Response. I didn't hear anything like that.
alors
So now I would like to revisit an issue, or that is, in any case, not very clear in the French transcript. And this is the issue of the duration of the evacuation. Can you tell us if the 1 week delay you spoke about in your previous statements was the time allotted for the evacuation itself, or was it the time after which the population would be allowed to return? Maybe my question is a bit convoluted. If you would like me to repeat it and to clarify it, I can do so.
donc en clair,
In the clearest terms possible, was there discussion about a time frame of 1 week for the evacuation of Phnom Penh? And was that the time frame given to schedule the total evacuation of Phnom Penh, that is, the entire population of Phnom Penh to leave, or the time frame during which people would be allowed to return to Phnom Penh?
Response. The plan was to evacuate the people, and everyone had to be evacuated in 1 week, by 1 week's time. But I did not know about when or if there was a plan for them to return to the city. But they had to leave all in within 1 week.
bien, je vous remercie pour cette
Very well. I wish to thank you for that very significant clarification. Witness. You talked about your arrival to Phnom Penh alongside Mr. Sun Sen. You made mention of your arrival at Pochontong. Do you recall which military forces were stationed at Pochontong? Do you know which division was at Pochontong at the time, and who was the commander of that division at the time?
Son Sen and Damok were in charge of that spearhead or target area.
Est-ce qu'il y avait d'autres chefs de division?
Were there any other division heads present?
There were, but I could not recall their names.
Vous dites ensuite
If I'm not mistaken, you also stated that you went to the stadium. Was there a special reason why you had to go to the stadium? Was it for a meeting or was it a strategic location?
I went to the stadium through National Road number 4. At that time, in between the current Ministry of Defense and the current Council of Ministers, there was a road leading to the stadium. I went to that location and I saw through helicopters and they would go and inspect the strategic locations throughout Phnom Penh, and the stadium was one of the strategic locations which would be interested by both national and international setting. And another strategic location was the vicinity in front of the Royal Palace, and another one was the Monivong Bridge, and from that Monivong Bridge on through the Independence Monument, and through Wat Phnom, and then from Wat Phnom through a hotel, but I did not know the name of that proper name of that hotel, but it was known during the regime as house number 2, and then we would go to the site of the Chiruyongwa bridge, but the bridge was then destroyed. So these was the strategic location identified, and it would need to be reported to the upper echelon of our reaching of that particular strategic locations. And of course, everywhere we went to such a strategic location, there would be the revolutionary troop present. In your question, you said that Son Sen accompanied me. In fact, it's the opposite. He was in a senior position than me. I accompanied him. It's not him accompanying me. Because I was in a kind of providing the protection for him.
Merci pour.
Thank you very much, Mr. Witness, for those clarifications. Can you please tell us if at each and every one of those strategic locations you had met with certain individuals? Can you please tell this court who you met with? Could you please tell us if there were any forces that were based in Phnom Penh prior to the fall of the city? I believe that they were given a particular label. They were called city agents, or they were a special section of the CPK. Were there any such contacts in place in the city at the time?
No, I did not meet those kind of people. I only met with some of the people whom I knew earlier. For example, from the east, it was a Sao Phum, Ta Tum, Ta Phuong, and Ta Rend. They were from the east. And from Mukampul to National Road number 5, there was Koi Thun, Kẻ Pok, and Dön. As for the infiltrated force in Phnom Penh, I was not to that knowledge, as I had not met them before, and they were already at their designated strategic locations.
Alors,
You talked about the Japanese bridge, and during your testimony, you also made mention of the French embassy. What I seek to know is the following. Did you receive any special instructions regarding people who were either diplomats or people who were taking refuge within embassy compounds? And when you arrived at the Japanese bridge, was there a particular point before the French embassy at which any meeting or encounter was held?
Regarding the Chiruyangwa Bridge, at that time, that was the first time I knew about it. And of course, I knew about the French embassy then, as it was introduced to me by Son Sen. That embassy's gate was closed. At the site of the bridge, I saw that the bridge was destroyed. And when I reached the stadium, he also told me that was the stadium. And as I said earlier, I saw through helicopters. And when I arrived at the Royal Palace, he introduced the Royal Palace to me as well. And the same thing happened when we arrived at the Monivuma Bridge, because these were the main strategic locations. So he introduced those locations to me. So that's how I learned about it. And the entry from the west, it would means the Phuchintong airport. And that's how he told me, and that's how I learned of it.
alors,
On the topic of the French embassy, Sun Sen simply told you that the gate was closed. He didn't provide any other information. Did he tell you what had happened? Did he tell you what was to be done?
He did not say anything, but the road from the main street through the gate was completely closed. So the gate was fully closed. That's how I saw it.
quel était le...
Who is the division leader in charge of the sector within which the Embassy of France was located?
that location was in charge by Koitun and Kaipok. And regarding the military commanders, there were Un, Peng, and Say.
Est-ce que vous avez suivi
Were you able to follow the developments surrounding the French embassy? Or were you kept informed of it in one way or another?
I did not know of the later development at that embassy.
Alors, il me reste très peu de questions.
I have very few questions remaining, sir, but I do wish to move on to a different topic. You told this chamber that one of your first tasks following the fall of Phnom Penh was to oversee shelter and housing, accommodation for visiting delegations. Do you confirm this?
Yes, I stand by my statement.
Et est-ce que vous pouvez nous dire quel est...
Can you please tell us which was the first foreign delegation that came to Democratic Kampuchea, and when did that visit take place?
The delegation was from China. At that time, it was Ta Sinchir who first arrived in Democratic Kampuchea.
C'était une délégation.
Was this a very large delegation? Were there many members traveling with that delegation?
Yeah, there were quite a number of colleagues, but the total number was less than 10.
Est-ce que vous avez...
Did you hear about the uncles discuss the return of Prince Sihanouk? I mean, what did you hear, if indeed you heard anything at all?
I did not know about the plan of the visit of Samdech Sihanouk. I did not know about that plan, but I saw him when he was already in the country. But when it comes to the conception of the plan, I was not aware of it.
During your previous testimonies, you spoke extensively about Ben Krabek. I'd like now for you to talk to me about Sheng Shamres, and I beg your pardon for my pronunciation, but I do hope that you understand what I'm referring to. Now, was Shem Sharek under your watch? Were you responsible for Shem Sharek?
Initially, Chang Chambre was part of Koitun's office. Later on, it was designated as part of B1.
Et qui précisément à B1
And who exactly from B1 was responsible for Shamshare? Was it you yourself, sir?
Yes, when it comes to B1 and that location, I was in charge. But the one who stayed permanently in Chiang Chim Res was a man known as Sim.
et quel était le rôle de Sheng
And what role did Sheng Shemrai play within B1? Was it a place that was used simply for farming vegetables, or was it a place that was destined for re-education?
There was a fishery section, a poultry section, and also the portion to deal with the rice farming. And there were about 30 palm trees as well as part of that compound.
Est-ce que c'était
Was Sheng Shemrai a rather ordinary cooperative, or was it a place for re-education?
No, it was not a re-education location. On the weekend, that is on Saturday and Sunday, then the staff from the ministry would go there to visit the place, or to cultivate the crop or the poultry or the fish, or to get the palm tree juice. And that was not really a major location. There was only one main shade. It's near the water area.
et Yang Sari il s'est rendu à
Did Yang Sari ever travel to Sheng Shamras?
Yes, he did. And So Hong also went to that location.
Vous avez indiqué
You stated that with respect to your duties at B1, you held the responsibility for, and I quote, general oversight of the administrative and moral management of psychological management of personnel. What does that mean exactly? What do you mean by psychological control over staff?
Yes, that's I did. It's important to control the staff psychologically, because I was overall in charge in that office, and I needed to grasp their status and position and their psychology and their stance of living, their view, whether they had a clear view, and also regarding the organizational matter, whether they were satisfied with where they were living, for instance.
donc
Therefore, psychological control meant determining whether or not people were satisfied or whether or not people were good or bad revolutionaries, whether or not they had good or bad conduct and mentality. What exactly do you mean by psychological control?
When it comes to the psychological management of the staff, whether they had a good stance, had clear revolutionary view, and fulfills the task to the best level, that was within or compassed within that term or phrase of the psychological management.
Et alors, si vous constatiez que
And if you had taken note of certain staff members who did not display the level of enthusiasm or goodwill required, what would happen?
We would give the comment, and of course, if they clearly and happily satisfied with the performance, with the revolutions, then just let it be, and it would continue that way.
et si on n'était pas satisfait,
If we were not satisfied, who are you referring to when you say we? Are you talking about yourself or somebody else?
If they're not satisfied, then we would convene a meeting. Then the group would report about the matter. Because they themselves would give opinions to assist one another when one was not satisfied within the group, or did not have a clear view, or was not happy. So the meeting was to improve and try to avoid such a situation in the future, that is to better the situation.
bien, je vous remercie.
Very well. Thank you for those answers, Mr. Witness. I have no further questions to put, Mr. President.
President, thank you, Judge. The time is now appropriate for a short recess. We will recess for 20 minutes and return at a 11:15. Court officer, please assist the witness during the recess, as well as the duty counsel, and have him return at a 11:15.
សូមជើងក្រោកឈរ